Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Jones, and we are going to talk about pesticide management. One of my favorite topics in all of horticulture. And luckily for you guys, if you've taken some of my other classes that I've got approved by the North Carolina Landscape Contractors Licensing Board, you actually saw my mugshot down in the right-hand corner. And so with this lecture, you're lucky enough that you don't have to see me. But this course, it is entitled Pesticide Management. It has the course number of CEL 402. It's a PowerPoint that I put together for the license board for you guys to get 1 hour credit of CEUs for the licensing board. So we're going to get started with pesticide management. A little bit about me and my pest management experience. When I graduated college in '97 with a degree of landscape architecture, instead of going into the design field, I went to work again full-time with my parents, set for the LARE, knocked out a couple sections, and got married and had kids, so I never did finish up the LARE. And lo and behold, after that, I joined the Army in 2009 as a midlife crisis. So I hadn't finished my LARE for the Landscape Architecture Registration Board, but I will do that very soon. But my experience with pesticide management, well, like I said, when I graduated college in '97, I went to work for Elite Landscape Service and Nursery Incorporated, and basically I was on a mowing crew for my parents, and we did a lot of pesticide applications, and I loved it. I got my license there in '97. Immediately after graduating, and have been a licensed pesticide applicator ever since. It is one of the courses that I teach every summer at the college I work at or teach at, and I teach it every other fall. I teach it 100% online. I actually use the North Carolina Pesticide Applicator Core Manual, and I use the Ornamentals and Turf as our textbook. And a lot of my students, once completing the class with me entitled Pest Management, come to me a lot and say, Eric, thank you for teaching this class. We absolutely hated you while you were teaching it because I really make it hard on them, especially in the summer course being a 10-week semester. I mean, we cover a lot of information and they have to do it pretty quick. But enough about me and pesticide management. I do love it. It is one of my favorite topics within the horticulture industry. I am a big advocate for the license, the pest management or the pesticide applicators licensing. I do not teach pesticide credits for the agricultural board. For one, they don't like online classes, and I'm trying to convince them of that to actually go for that. So hopefully with doing this for the Landscape Contractors Board, and I do teach some for the Irrigation Board, that maybe we can do some pesticide CEUs online. So let's go ahead and get started with this. I'm actually reading from my notes as we go along, and let's get started. So pesticide applications can be a very lucrative part of your business, and really that's why you see a lot of companies that just focus on doing turf applications. It's a science. It's an art to it. It is a monotonous system, guys, that when you hire somebody, they're going to be doing this day in and day out. And I've always told my students and fellow landscapers that monotonous work makes you more money. It's the God's honest truth. We always had the problem when I worked for my parents that we were trying to do too many things. We were trying to cut grass. We were trying to do design build. We were traveling all over the Southeast doing landscape installations for certain chains that we'd worked for. And we kind of spread ourselves too thin. And to make the money, you've got to do the same thing day in and day out, and you perfect it. And that's why some of the larger lawn care companies they're on the stock market. They're nationwide. They've created a system that makes them money. And the one thing about pesticide applications, if I was going to be a one-man operator, and there are times that I've thought about doing this, and I kind of put a business plan together talking about pesticides, and that if I did want to solely work for myself, other than if it was being a landscape architect, would be to be a pesticide applicator. I think I could really support myself, support my family by doing this, by having enough sites that I take care of, and the only thing I do is granular applications, do some liquid applications, do the pre-emergent, do the spray for broadleaf weeds. I think if I set up a system that me as a one man, I could probably do enough that I could sustain my family. And the best thing about it is not only when it comes to making money, but guys, if it rains, and we all know that when we cut people's grass, if it rains, guess what? They're calling, why didn't you cut my grass? Especially if it rains on a Thursday and a Friday, and they've got people coming over Saturday, and you've got 3 days worth of mowing to do on a Saturday. You don't show up, they're going to be firing you, or they're going to be finding somebody else to do it. The thing with pesticide applications, if it rains one day, you can postpone that, and people aren't going to be so mad at you. So that's one of the reasons that I would prefer to do it by myself. I don't think that I could ever have a mowing crew and actually mow by myself. I just can't do it. But I could do the turf applications and probably enjoy myself doing it. However, it is probably one of the greatest risks and liabilities to your business. For one, you are putting chemicals on people's turf. And I've kind of got a little mixed emotions about that, because I'm thinking, the stuff that I apply to the turf, it's not that bad. Not that bad. If you get a little bit on it, get a little bit on you or whatever, it's not going to kill you. But the bad thing is, and I've seen it so many times, and I've had people call me and they say, Eric, what's the temperature today? Is it going to be too hot to spray? And the wind's blowing 20 mile an hour or 15 mile an hour. And I'm like, man, why are you worried about the temperature when the wind's blowing? So the problem with applicators is that they are doing their applications when it's too windy. Some of them are doing it when it is too hot, and they shouldn't be doing it. And it can be a liability to your business, especially with drift. And one of the main reasons I like using the larger tanks, and I've got some pictures on that actually is more like of a shower head that doesn't create much of a drift. And that's kind of what I like using. But I'll get into that a little bit more when we start seeing some pictures of equipment. And again, guys, I want to emphasize to you all that I'm not necessarily the expert across the board in horticulture. There are niches that I choose to do more of and that I feel like I'm an expert at. But you guys are in the business. Some of you guys have been in the business 30 plus years. I know a lot of this is redundant and may be repetitious to you, but it's always good to go back and look at things like safety, new equipment, new pesticides that come out for this. So again, I'm not stressing that I'm the expert. I learn every day from my students at school. I learn every day from my colleagues. I learn every day from the industry itself. That's the best thing about being in education, is that I'm always learning. I enjoy that. I don't think there's one person in the horticulture industry that knows everything about or is the perfect expert at everything within this business. So again, I know I get a little sidetracked. I get a little excited about teaching these classes, but with pesticides, guys, you can make some money with it, but however, you're going to have some risk, and it could be a liability to your business. Regulations, FIFRA, the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide, amended in 1972, just the year before I was born, to initiate a program to certify individuals who apply pesticides. So FIFRA was the big thing that came down in the early 70s. Well, from that, the federal government did grant regulatory primacy to the states. So that's why you have the North Carolina Department of Agriculture or South Carolina Department of Agriculture. The federal government set up these minimum standards and they pushed it down to the states. And as long as the states meets or exceeds the federal government's regulations, they're going to be fine with that. Now, let's talk a little bit about general use pesticides and restricted use pesticides. Now, one of these, anybody can go and purchase the pesticides. I call this like the big box store pesticides. And that would be your general use. So this is Mr. Homeowner, Miss Homeowner. They see some weeds in their yard. They're going to go to one of the big box stores and they're going to talk to the individual who is employed by the big box store who knows nothing about horticulture, but for somehow another reason they stuck him in the garden center. They're going to go and they're going to buy these general use pesticides. We, as licensed pesticide applicators, can also purchase the general use pesticides, but we sometimes have to purchase the restricted use pesticide. And let's look at restricted. Let's think of it as, hey, it's restricted to people with license. So that's one way to remember the difference between general and restricted use pesticides. I teach that in my class at the college to kind of get our students knowing the difference between a general use and a restricted use, just the definition of it. So when they see that the pesticide is a general use, they know that pretty much homeowners can buy it, or if it's restricted use, it's going to have to actually be a licensed applicator to do it. And another way to remember the difference is general use. I like to think of it as in terms of medication for my turf grass. If it's general use medication for my turf, I can go to a pharmacy and I can buy over-the-counter drugs for it. So I can buy my over-the-counter pesticides. Anybody can do it. You don't need to see the doctor and get a prescription. Well, if you need something a little bit stronger to knock out what's ailing the turf grass and you get a written prescription for it, you're actually hiring a licensed applicator who has that prescription for that medication or that drug that he can use on your turf grass. And that's why we are the lawn doctors, or we are the lawn experts, Dr. Weedman, and things of that nature. So again, difference between general and restricted use pesticide. One, you got to have a license. The other, you can purchase pretty much anywhere and anybody can purchase it. And there you see my little warning sign. A, restricted use pesticides require a license. The 1998 FIFRA amendments, they added the Worker Pesticide Protection Standard, the WPS. They also added the Right to Know legislation, or the SARA, the Superfund Amendments and Reauthorization Act. And really with that, the WPS, you know, there were some issues with workers not knowing actually what they were applying. And this pretty much applies probably to larger agricultural settings, not necessarily the turf care or the lawn care industry. But workers have a right to know what they're applying. They have a right to have the proper protection equipment, or the PPE. They have the right to know everything that's involved with what they're spraying. And they also required material safety data sheets to be provided for on the pesticides that we are purchasing and are applying. And they required farmers and turf grass industry people to maintain an inventory. Now, I will tell you straight up with our inventory. My inventory never consisted of anything that I'm not going to use that week. I would not stock up. Now, let's go back again to thinking about a one-man operation that I would possibly want to do. If I'm a one-man operator, and when it comes to maintaining inventory, and when it comes times to maintaining the storage safety space and building all that, yeah, you might get some discounts if you buy your stuff in bulk up front, but I could do that with my dry, but I'm not going to do it with my liquid. I'm going to keep what I'm going to spray that week on the truck. I'm not going to keep a large shop full of pesticide because I don't want to have to maintain the inventory. I don't want to have to keep up with the sheets and everything that I'm doing. So with myself, and I in the cab of my pickup truck that's got my sprayer and fertilizer spreader in the back and the chemicals I'm using. I'm going to keep a little notebook, kind of like this material safety data sheets notebook, and I'm going to have my label. I'm going to have my labeling. I'm going to have my MSDS sheet, and I'll have like an inventory log. And it's going to be stuff that I use that week. I'm not going to have to worry about keeping it up with it in a major shop or in keeping up with having the retaining wall built around it so that there's no spills and whatnot. So, but those were the amendments that were added in 88. The pesticide label. The pesticide label is the written, printed, or graphic matter on or attached to the pesticide of any of its containers or wrappers. The pesticide label constitutes a legal and binding contract between the applicator and the chemical company prohibiting the use of the pesticide in any application or procedure not consistent with the label. So, again, there's a difference between labels and labeling. The label is exactly what's printed on the bottle. Think about a Coca-Cola bottle or another favorite soda of yours, a 2-liter that's got that plastic wrapped around it. That is your label. If you buy some of the 2.5-gallon jugs of pesticides and they've got that plastic wrapped around it, and then there's this little booklet that's about the size of a cell phone, that is your labeling. Your labeling can also constitute anything that the pesticide dealer or the ag extension agent gives you about the pesticides. So, again, always remember the difference between the label and the labeling. My students at the college sometimes will get that mixed up because I do a lot of test questions with that. So I just try to stress the difference between the label. Always think of the label, what's printed on the bottle. The labeling is any additional material that may be present with the pesticide and not actually given to you from the manufacturer. The state or the ag agents or the distributors can actually give you this information that would be considered for your labeling. However, on the label, you're going to see the directions for use. You're going to see the signal word, which caution, danger, warning. I know that's just recently changed. I actually taught a class a few weeks ago, face to face, where the contractors got all the 7 hours in one day. And one of the guys actually had the documentation in his truck, and he went out. And I think they're actually going to, I would have to look at that. I can't remember exactly what he said, but they were changing the signal word. Talks about your first aid. You're going to have your EPA registration number, and you're going to see your active ingredients mainly on the label. So here we're looking at one of everybody's favorites, Mr. Roundup. We got the Roundup label here. We see the common name, we see the trade name, we see the active ingredients, and we all know that Roundup is glyphosate. And we see the chemical name, the active ingredients, and the other ingredients representing 59% here on a Roundup label. Funny too, the same class that I was just talking about a couple weeks ago, one of the guys was in there and said he had went to a actual pesticide training seminar, and one of the guys there actually poured a little bit of the Roundup out and took a swallow of it. And he said everybody's pitching a fit about the chemicals and everything, and he says the stuff ain't going to kill you. He said, granted, if you were to spray Roundup every single day of your life, you could actually build up some of this chemical in your body, and it possibly could kill you. But getting a little bit on your hands, getting a little bit on your mouth, stuff like that, it is not going to harm you guys. So, comparison of pesticide formulations used in landscape management. And see, we see the formulation up top, the label or the hazards that it's going to have, the phytotoxicity, the effect on the application equipment, the agitation, whether it's required or if it does not need to be, compatible with other formulations, and then expressed either as percent or pounds per gallon. So wettable powders. We have our wettable powders, we have our dry, we have our flowable or dry flowables, we have our liquid formulations, we have our emulsifiable concentrates, we have our flowables, we have dust, that's a dry formulation, then we have our granulars and pellets. Now guys, I will be 100% honest with you. Have I used every single one of these? Yes, but do I use them all the time? No. The two main that I'm going to use is going to be my granulars and my liquids. For one, they're just easier to handle. And again, I'm thinking of doing it as a one-man operation. So let's say I have 500 yards that I'm taking care of. We're just using that as an example. I'm only dealing with a few containers of my liquid applications, and I'm only dealing with probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 different granulars that I'm going to apply to the client's turf throughout the year. So I'm picking the easier of the two to work with and going with that. Now I have several lectures upon these with these that I use for the college. But we're not going to get into that. You guys pretty much understand what these are. Again, I'm just telling you what my two favorite are. It's the liquid and the granulars. And if I have to use the other ones, I will if there's something comes up. But if I would avoid it and use my favorite two. So again, the pesticide label has the product name or the trade name. It's going to have the active ingredient, the type of formulation, which was the chart that we just seen before that. It's going to have the type of pesticide, and we have the fungicides, we have the insecticides, we have the herbicides, and we have the PGRs. Now, your fungicides are going to be your pesticides that take care of fungus. Your insecticides are going to be the pesticide that we use on our insects. Our herbicide is going to be our pesticide that we use on plant materials. And then we're going to have our PGRs or our plant growth regulators, which I like using. I do like using the growth regulators, especially on larger properties that has a lot of pruning. And they're good for if you're on a large commercial site and say you've got miles of sidewalks instead of weed eating it every week. Actually doing it good and then applying a PGR to just the edges. You'll have your official common name, your chemical name, your inert ingredients, your surfactants, and if it has any wetting agents. And again, going back to running a business, guys, with a backpack sprayer here, with the chemicals that I'm using, and you'll see it in the slide here in a little bit, but again, one-man show. I mean, you can do a lot with a backpack sprayer and a push fertilizer. A lot easier to handle too. You don't have to worry about tanks dripping or anything like that. So, really, guys, with a backpack sprayer, a fertilizer spreader, and a little hand applicator, you're in business. You're in business of being a professional turf company, and you've got low expense. So again, I'm all about that. And the one thing is that to do this, you do have to have a license to spray pesticides. And I still cannot believe that people are getting caught not doing that. I mean, it's one of the simplest license to get. And, being a landscape contractor, guys, we've got to get 7 CEUs a year. As an irrigation contractor, we have to get 10 CEUs a year. With pesticides, you only got to get 10 every 5 years. They just can't all be in the same year. They got to be spread out. But, in 2 years, you can get the 10 hours that you need, and you're good for the next 3. And so, get your pesticide license. That is the one thing that I tell my students. I really want them when they leave my program. I want to see them get their pesticide license, and I want to see them go ahead and become a certified plant professional. They've just finished taking 2 semesters of plant material, and we're thinking about adding a third semester of advanced plant materials. So take that knowledge and go ahead and get your license and certifications. You're going to have signal words. I'm looking through my notes here if there's anything that I want to tell you. Because I keep these handy notes that I have with me at all times. Excuse me. And with it being June, I still have a lot of allergies. So one would wonder why I became a horticulturalist, but I love it. So your signal words, you've got danger or poison, and then you've got warning and then caution. But then, like I said, with the class that I taught a couple weeks ago, one of the attendees or students was talking about that they were changing and they were only going to have 2 signal words. So then we have the toxicity. We have LD50, LC50, and lethal dose that 50% of the population dies. So that, my friends, is a major thing. So if you apply a pesticide and 50% of the population dies, you really don't want that. So, but they are rating it on basing of LD50, and I'm looking to see. I know I had some more notes about that I was going to talk about. So, where is it? I know I have it. Again, would that burn it? I may have left that at my office. Well, oh my goodness. Well, I guess I won't tell you what I wanted to tell you. So, okay. But just know that LD 50 is a lethal dose. That 50% of the population dies. Routes of exposure: dermal, oral, inhalation. So dermal, you get it on your skin. Oral, you get it on your mouth, and then inhalation is where you're breathing it in. And I'm all about wearing the mask. If it stinks, trust me, I'm going to be wearing the mask. For one, I don't want to go home with a headache. And even spraying stuff, Speed Zone, one of my favorite broadleaf chemicals to put out. If I spray 1 yard, I'm okay. But if I'm spraying it all day long, and it's not that bad, but guess what? I don't want the headache that I'm going to get, so I will wear the mask. Try not to be the crazy guy. I don't like spraying this stuff that you actually have to wear the full Tyvek suit and the mask and the goggles and all that. Because your clients are going to freak out. They're going to pull in the driveway. What are you doing? So why are you having to wear all that? I don't want that in my yard. My dog will be out, and my kids are going to throw a ball this afternoon. So I'm using some of the least toxic stuff, and that don't have to do it. But with your routes of exposure, about 97% of all body exposure to pesticides during an application is through skin contact. So that, my friends, isn't too good. And how many times have you seen your employees or seen other applicators where they're doing a lawn care application and they don't have the gloves on? They spray the chemical, they mix the chemical, and you're most vulnerable to the pesticide is when you're mixing it up, when you're pouring it into the tank, because you're dealing with the concentrate. And they're pouring the concentrate into the tank, and they don't wear the gloves, and they get a little bit on their hand. Next thing you know, they pick up their cigarette and they get the cigarette a little wet with the pesticide. They're inhaling it, or they've got their hands that's got the pesticide on it, and they pick up their Coke, and a little bit gets in their mouth from that way. So you got to make sure that your employees are using the PPE. Like I said, I do it, but we've all got Mr. Cool that works for us and who thinks he's too cool, that he's not going to get hurt and he doesn't have to wear all the body armor that we need. And then inhalation toxicity, that's where you're breathing it in all day. And it doesn't have to be all day. I mean, I've had to put out some stuff for my parents that I did have to wear the Tyvek suit, that I did have to wear the mask, the goggles, and everything out. And the best thing about that, it's always when it's 95 degrees outside. And I remember doing it when I was putting out some granular stuff that was pretty toxic. Adjuvants. Substances added to the pesticide formulation or spray solution to enhance the effectiveness. I know this is probably some of your test questions for this lecture, but they improve the wetting ability of the spray solution. They control the evaporation of the spray droplets. They improve the pesticide persistence. They increase the foliar or insect uptake. So you don't want to actually spray your pesticide and it not be uptaken by the pest or by the plant that needs to have the pesticide on. It can adjust the pH of the spray solution. It can improve the spray droplet coverage. It can increase the safety of the spray to non-target plants or animals. It can correct spray tank incompatibility problems. And it can reduce spray drift. And that's our biggest thing, I believe, is reducing the drift. And we can also use our dyes and colorants that can actually mark spray patterns. Now, with your dyes and with your colorants, guys, be careful. Do not use the blue tracker dye and go and spray somebody's concrete driveway that's got some Bermuda grass that's coming in it. Don't do it. Now, if you're spraying a large area, big shrub bed areas and stuff, yeah, do it. That way you're not wasting pesticide and applying too much pesticide, which is illegal. You can actually see where you've been. Just don't use it on concrete or brick or anything like that. It's going to turn the pavement that Smurf blue. Also, the bad thing with the tracker dye, when I've sprayed it on, sprayed it in backpack sprayers, I don't know how it happens, but lo and behold, you're going to get your t-shirts blue. I don't know if it's the splashing around or what, but for somehow or another, when I use the tracker dye, I can see that I've gotten it all over me. And trust me, I've had Roundup. I've been soaked with Roundup, and it hasn't killed me yet. But it's still kind of spooky when you turn around or you take your shirt off and it's absolutely just solid blue, and then your skin's blue. That means you've got the chemical on it. So just be careful using your dyes and your colorants and getting things again, like spraying patios, driveways, and things of that nature. Now, again, guys, we're talking about one-man operations. And not only my job within teaching horticulture and teaching green industry stuff, one of my favorite things to teach, guys, is business. I love teaching a marketing management class that I have, and it teaches our students how to market their horticulture business. So I'm all about the business, and we do a business plan. And one of the things that I tell my students, I have students say, hey, I want to have a tree farm. I want to have greenhouses. I want to have a crew that does landscaping. And Mr. Jones, how do I do a business plan for all that? You can't. You do a business plan per segment of your business. So, like I said, if I was going to do a one-man operation and it not be landscape architecture, it's going to be pesticides. My business plan would be very simple and very small, because guess what? here's the 3 pieces of equipment that's going to put me in business other than my pickup truck. I've had a truck my whole life. So, and most of us are. People that get into the horticulture business, they're pickup drivers anyway. They're not driving little cars. You know, they're just by nature are truck people. So you've got your truck and you buy a backpack sprayer and you buy a seeder and you buy a fertilizer spreader, you are in business. And just think about the inexpensive, I mean, what? A little over $300 for the Lesco fertilizer spreader. You know, $100 for the Earthway, maybe a little more. And then you got your backpack sprayer. I mean, so what? $600, $700 maximum buying the best of this, you're in business. So I tell my students with their business plan, pick something that's easy to get into. And, you know, mowing is easy to get into as well. I mean, with the financing done by the dealerships and all of that, it's real easy to get into it. So they do a business plan, and I recommend doing one for turf, or I recommend doing one for mowing, so just to get them on the idea of actually doing business plans. Now, when they decide to have a landscape company or a design build team or just an installation crew, then they do another business plan for that part of their segment. I don't like, you can't do a good business plan when you're going to encompass everything. And again, I tell everybody that I teach, monotonous work makes you money. It can get boring. It can get, I've got to do this again today. But that's when it's time to have an employee kind of do that for you. If you take this, again, if I'm doing something by myself and I build this up to where it's getting to be too much, or I want to sell it, or I want to expand into design build, I'm going to hire an employee that's actually going to take over this part or this segment of my business and kind of run the lawn care and let me do something a little bit different. Application equipment, again, I use the big Lesco. I use this exact same sprayer here when I worked for my parents, and I do like this. The bad thing about it, I hate having to wind the hose up all the time. I think I like the backpack a little bit easier. I know this can cover a lot of ground, but as I tell my students, and when we talk about integrated pest management, I am one who is not going to mix my liquid fertilizer with my pesticide. Not going to do it. I'm sorry. I teach integrated pest management. I'm a big proponent or a big fan of it. And let's say we've got a yard that has a little bit of clover in it, but other than that, it's healthy, and I need to spray the clover. Well, if I've mixed my liquid fertilizer with my broadleaf weed control, and I'm going to spray the entire yard because it needs fertilizer, and I really only need to spot spray where the clover is. It makes more sense to me to put out my dry fertilization or do a dry application for fertilizer and then have a backpack sprayer, or even if I'm using this, then I just pull the hose off and I hit that little bit of clover. I'm not putting that pesticide over the entire yard, and you have to do that. If you mix a liquid fertilizer with your pesticide, you've got to put that pesticide all over the yard, which only a small part of the yard may have the clover or have the weeds that you needed to spray. So based with integrated pest management, you're for one, you're spending more money than you should because pesticides aren't cheap. And if you're applying that pesticide to the entire 10,000 square foot lawn, when basically only 1,000 square foot of it needed to be sprayed for weeds, you've just wasted 9,000 square feet of pesticide that you could have used on the next job. Again, pesticide equipment, and we're about 40 minutes into the lecture. I try to keep my lectures around 50-55 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll keep moving here. Just some things that we use at the college, and that we use especially in our greenhouses and things of that nature. But the duster or whatever that you put on top of the backpack blower there, good for doing it in greenhouses and even doing it in the landscape. But just some different pictures And then you have a power sprayer there at the bottom. I'm still a fan of the hand pump. Again, it's not that hard for me to actually pump it up. But if you're going to possibly, spray some larger shrubs or whatever, that might help you get the PSI up enough to hit it. So just different types of equipment here. Here we see on a farm, like a sod farm, they're actually spraying. And the good thing about that is when you calibrate a big piece of equipment like that, but good looking piece of equipment. My dad uses something to very similar to this on the farm. So I like seeing him and actually helping him when he does it. Again, we had a Ride-On Ultra here. We had the exact same machine. Loved it, but the thing is, you have got to take care of them every single day. You cannot go and spray and put out your chemicals and then walk away from the machine and try to come back to it tomorrow. When the guys pull into the shop, they need to clean it out, wash it, and have it ready to go the next day. Your solo spreader here, I love putting out my snapshot with this, doing a preem in the shrub bed control. And we would put it out with one of these solo chest spreaders here. Never really been fond of a drop spreader here, ladies and gentlemen. Calibration, there's two pieces of information that you need, and I know this is a test question at the end of this lecture, but the two pieces of information that you need is you need your sprayer output, and you need to know the coverage of the property that you're going to use. We're not going to get too much into calibration. That again is in itself is a whole different lecture. Sprayer output, again, is done in fluid ounces per minute. You are going to need a stopwatch. You're going to need a container to catch the liquid, and then you're going to need an accurate measuring device. And how many, when should you calibrate? Technically, you're supposed to calibrate your equipment every time you use them. But feasibly, is that going to happen? No, because you're going to be rushed. You're going to be pushed out the door. So again, guys, you may laugh at me. You may think I'm absolutely crazy, but I love the backpack sprayer, and I love the granular push spreaders. You're not going to have to worry so much about your calibration with those. Yes, you do need to calibrate your fertilizer spreader, and you do need to calibrate your backpack, but can be done very, very simple and done very, very quickly. There are going to be times that you need the larger sprayer, but in all actuality, if I can use the backpack, that's what I'm going to be doing. Sprayer output, use the sprayer with the nozzles that will be used in application, so make sure you're using the same size. I know a lot of them are color-coded. And you're going to perform the same operating parameters. You're going to use the same pressure. You're going to use the same speed. You're going to do the same type of terrain. And it really needs to be done on site or something very similar to it. You're going to have to measure all the nozzles, and then you'll want to replace all of your worn and incorrect nozzles that are there. You're going to operate the sprayer in a stationary position less than 1 minute. You're going to collect your output in the containers. You're going to measure the output in the containers, and you're going to repeat this 2 more times, and then you're going to take an average reading of the 3 times that you've done it and get your ounces per minute that are coming out from the sprayer. Sprayer output example, we have a 5 nozzle boom sprayer that was collected for 10 seconds. We don't have the book, so we're not going to worry about that, but we're going to multiply by 6, not by 5 for a number of seconds, because there was something wrong in the textbook that I was using earlier. And here again, I kind of like, whoops, I'm going to go back. I know a lot of us are good old country people, and I tell my students that, especially grew up on farms and stuff, and they want a 4-wheeler, or they're looking at buying a 4-wheeler. I'm like, you can always do lawn care if you get the 4-wheeler. I mean, you can actually pay for the thing by spraying out the turf, and that's something I may need to do, because I'm a good old country boy myself, and I'd much rather be outside than being inside. So one way to pay for it is to do chemical applications. That was the table that was in the book. We're not going to go over that, but that is output determination of the boom sprayer and the calibration example. And that's basically just telling you the average OPM based on the ounces per minute from each of the from each one of the nozzles that was on the boom sprayer. So what we're going to do is convert ounces per minute to gallons per acre or gallons per minute. We're going to do it for gallons per minute here. So we're going to take ounces per minute. We're going to divide by 128. 128 ounces being what's in a gallon. So this will be gallons per minute. So we had 364 divided by the 128 gave us the 2.84 gallons per minute. Coverage, the amount of time it takes to spray in a given area expressed in minutes per acre, or M or min divided by A. Landscape professionals were more suited for the 1,000 per square feet rule of thumb, where M is the Roman numeral for 1,000, because most of our fertilized bags and even our labels for our liquid pesticides is going to pretty much state ounces or pounds per square foot. We're used to that 1,000 square foot, that term used when we're doing our applications. We're going to mark off a 100-foot straight line. We're going to run the sprayer 3 times the distance in average. So here we have 3 runs. First one being 89, 90, and 91. So we have a total of 270 divided by 3. So our average is 90 seconds per 100 feet. We calculate the effective spray width. We have a 5-nozzle boom sprayer which has a width of 10 feet. We know that it takes 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds to cover the 100 linear feet. And to determine that coverage, multiply linear feet traveled by the effective spray width. 100 times 10 gives us the 1,000 square feet covered in 1.5 minutes. So our again, ooh, damn, burn it. How did I do that? Oh my gosh. Y'all gonna kill me. How did I hit it? But it gives us the 1.5 minutes. To determine the minutes per acre, multiply by min divided by m, so it's 43.56. 1.5 times 43.56 gives us the 65.34 minutes per acre. The output in ounces per minute or gallons per minute, and the coverage in min divided by m or min divided by a are multiplied to obtain the amount of water applied per unit area. And don't know how I got tongue-tied there and even off on my slides. Moving them fingers too quick. So, for example, ounces per 1,000 square feet is equivalent to 364 times 1.5 gives us the 546. So our gallons per acre, 2.85 GPM times the 65.34 gives us 185.56. So our sprayer would deliver 546 ounces per minute or 185.56 gallons per acre. So a lot of math there. And during my horticulture pesticide class that I teach every summer and every fall, we get some crazy math problems that we do. And you've probably seen them on my YouTube page. But those are fun to work, and it's fun to see the students get a little scared when they see some of my math problems. Here was a video I found on YouTube of calibrating the granular equipment. I forget who did it, but it was a good YouTube. You could actually just search it. For some reason, it still doesn't want to link up here. The line offset method. Again, like if you're working for a golf course or you had an odd-shaped backyard that's inside a fence and that's your turf, you would draw a straight line down the middle, and then you would do your lines, and they are offset the same distance, 3 feet apart. And then you would measure your C line. A and B is 0 because that's the baseline. You got C is 10, D is 12, E is 11, F is 10, G is 9, H is 7, I is 10, J is 12, and K is 12. You get the sum of the offsets, that's 93. 93 times 3 is 279 square feet. So it's based on an average like that. And there are a few yards that you'll do that look like this. And the end. So before we did that, I know there are some test questions that's on your quiz here, and we're at 50 minutes into the lecture. But talking about IPM, we have prevention. We have which is an action to keep the pest problem from occurring. Suppression treats existing pest problems to reduce the damage, and eradication is the complete elimination of a pest in a given area. And that's basically pretty much goals of your pest management program is prevention, suppression, and eradication. Now, one thing to remember, guys, you don't want to completely eradicate all of the pest because if you eliminate a pest that you 100% eradicated, well, there might be some beneficials that were feeding on that pest. And if you eradicate it or you totally eliminate that bad bug, the good bugs might get up and leave because their food source has been cut off. So make sure that you don't do that. Something else to talk about, systemic pesticides and contact pesticides. Remember that systemic pesticides work from within an organism, so they're actually uptake and they're spread through the what I like to call the anatomy of the plant material or the insect. Whereas contact pesticides remain on the surface. They're not actually absorbed into the body. And a little fun thing, and this is crazy, when I was in my master's program at Clemson, which I haven't finished yet, I had a major heart attack when I was halfway through. At 40 years old, I threw a blood clot from my leg from active duty Army time. For some reason, what I was exposed to in the Army, I developed blood clots. And so I had a blood clot break loose from my leg, and it hit my heart, and boom, I was out. I saw the light, saw my Lord and Savior, and they brought me back. But when I was at Clemson, I had to take an anatomy and physiology class because I was in the biological science program. And they were talking about the organophosphates and how they were used on insects, and he kind of compared it to our anatomy and the insect. But it was talking about the organophosphates that are systemic, that are actually going to inhibit the acetylcholine by inhibiting that enzyme. So basically, what those organophosphates were doing to the insects was they were actually shaking themselves to death. They literally wore themselves out. And I'm just throwing that in there because that was an extra credit question that I always do for my students in the summer. So, guys, that will wrap up the lecture. There are 10 questions on Moodle for this quiz. I appreciate the time that you have given me, and I appreciate your business, and I hope to see you in the next lecture. Thanks. Have a great day.